So you guys seem to love my previous video taking a look back at Season 2. I saw a ton of requests for Season 3, so that's exactly what we're covering today. But first, if you do enjoy my content, especially these look backs at the history of Smite and stuff like that, then please do subscribe to the channel. The support has been insane lately and we're nearing 30k subscribers, so if you enjoy what I do, don't hesitate to hit that button. But let's get right into it. So Season 3, unlike Season 2, was one of my least favourite seasons of all time. I think Season 4 was worse, but other than that, I think I preferred every other season to Season 3. There's a multitude of reasons why I didn't like this season, but it also did a lot of things well and innovated new things that are now staples within Smite. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. So Season 3 began with the launch patch on February 2nd, 2016, and ran all the way through to the launch of Season 4 on February 1st, 2017. During that time, we saw 12 God releases, which is quite a step up from what we get nowadays, and even from Season 2 that I covered last time, which had 10 releases. However, quantity doesn't always equal quality, and in some of the releases in this season we can really see that. Some of them fell quite flat in my opinion, especially when you compare it to the releases of Season 2 or the ones we're getting now. So the Guardians of Season 3 I think were actually excellent. Terra and Fafnir both innovate in new ways while remaining relatively easy to grasp and play at a basic level for new players. Fafnir has the transformation mechanic, which while it is a bit similar to a stance switcher, it's not exactly the same thing since it kind of gives him empowered abilities for a short time rather than like a permanent second set of abilities. And Terra has the interactions with her walls and obelisks and one of the most unique Guardian ultimates we've ever seen, even though it has been reworked slightly since she was released. The Mage releases encompassed Raijin, Thoth, and right at the end of the season we got the Morrigan. So I think of the releases we've had this year, the Mages were some of the better ones. And as always, I'm talking here in terms of overall design. Yes, Thoth and Raijin were OP as hell on release, and Morrigan would fall through the floor while ulting and all that other kind of stuff, but I think if you look at these three gods in the modern day, they're very fun and healthy for the game. Thoth is arguably the black sheep here because a lot of people have a problem with him just being uber safe, shooting lines at enemies from my own fountain while they're stood in the tier 1. But for the most part, I think the mages of this season fit quite well into Smite. Of course, Morrigan was one of the most innovative releases we've ever had, which is why she was bugged so badly on release. That's sort of a given when you're working with such complex mechanics as transforming into an entirely different god for a limited duration. And Raijin just seems like a solid release for me. As for warrior releases in Season 3, it has nothing on Season 2. Erlang Shen, one of my favourite warriors ever, was released here, and that's of course a plus in my opinion for the season, even if I only really got into playing Erlang in sort of Season 5 onwards after its initial release. However, Nike is really a god that I just can't get myself to play. I'm not calling her a bad god design necessarily, as she did bring some unique things like the enormous health shield in the ultimate, but I think the fact that she needed a partial rework proves at least somewhat conclusively that Nike wasn't an amazing god design. And for me, I really didn't like her at all. So for assassins, we had Susano and Camazotz. Once again, this is sort of a mixed bag. I really like Susano's overall design, but he can be a bit toxic to deal with at times, and of course was broken as all hell upon his release. A lot of people, including myself, do find him extremely frustrating to play against, and that leads to a lot of resentment towards the god, but I think overall he's a decent addition to the game. And Camazotz was actually quite fair, but for me I just didn't really like his design that much. I like some CC and utility and stuff like that on my assassins, and even if it's just a little bit, and having only a small slow and that being it, makes for a pretty boring playstyle with Camazotz in my personal opinion. Of course, nothing against Camazotz mains, but this is my video, so deal with it. And finally, we have the Hunter releases for this season, which is really where a lot of my hatred for the gods of Season 3 comes from. Skadi, Izanami, and Jingwei. So let's just get Jing out of the way first because she is the exception. I like Jingwei's design. Besides the built-in crit chance though, those who've been around me or my channel for a while will know my hatred for crit chance, especially when it's built into a god's base kit like this. Winning a fight you have no business winning because you rolled 3 crits in a row on 10% chance is bullshit, straight up. But other than that, Jingwei is a really cool god with some unique elements as well, such as the knock-up counter and the passive. As for Skadi and Izanami though, these are two of my least favourite hunters of all time. Potentially some of my least favourite gods in the game at large. Skadi is just a shit design, straight up. I know I just offended like a couple hundred people, but I really despise Skadi's design. Having half of your kit being reliant on just sending a pet at someone is not fun or interactive in any way. Plus the slip and slide is one of the most cancerous CCs in the entire game. But I've already ranted about Skadi, so I'm not going to repeat it all in this video too. As for Izanami, I don't have major issues with her design in the way that I do for Skadi. If you want to play Izanami and you find her fun, then go ahead. For me though, she just seems very boring and I can't get into her. That's just my personal view though. I know a lot of people do like Izanami and what she's all about. I think really Hyros were too focused on releasing new gods during this season instead of focusing on making quality gods or reworking some. They made 12 gods in one season and some of them fell flat. Nowadays in Season 5 and 6 there's less god releases, but I think on average they're much better designed and usually more fun. So what was the meta like in Season 3? What was strong, weak, what was Conquest like? Let's talk about that for a bit. So Season 3 is really infamous for being the Golden Bow season. This item alone single-handedly destroyed the Conquest metagame for a good 2 months before being removed entirely in the middle of Season 3. For those not well versed in this item's history, Golden Blade is a cool item that was in the game right now, right? But it can't be built on Hunters. This is why. This version of the item was similar to Golden Blade, except the tier 2 version of the item had a slightly weaker version of the same passive effect. So all you had to do was spend 1350 gold at the start of the game, leaving you enough for 3 potions as well, and you just auto win the laning phase as any hunter. This completely forced out any magical ADC picks and basically made it so the entire Conquest meta at the time was just hope your ADC gets bigger than the enemy ADC so you can win the late game. It was really unfun for anyone who wasn't an ADC main at the time. Oh, and on top of the Golden Bow cancer, we also had to deal with the absolutely ridiculous form of Soul Eater back in this season as well. Offering 30% lifesteal, 30% attack speed, and 10% movement speed once stacked up, but when you drop below 50% of your health, it consumed those stacks and healed you for 1% of your max health per stack. This stacked 20 times, so you got to heal 1/5 of your maximum HP just out of nowhere. This once again made hunters insanely hard to fight and was generally just unfun for anyone who wasn't a hunter / ADC main back then. As for Season 3's God meta, this is of course very subjective, and if gods you like are popular and strong, then you probably like the season's God meta overall, and vice versa. For me, this was quite enjoyable. Giannis and Athena were on top of the world for pretty much the entire season, and for me, I really like those two gods. There was also a good variety of prominent solo laners such as Osiris, Bellona, Tyr, and Vamana all doing quite well in this season. And a lot of my most hated gods like Hel, AMC, and Aphrodite were all in low tier and saw very little play throughout most of the season. Though I'm not gonna lie, the rise of Bakasura in Season 3 gives me PTSD to earlier this season when Baka was pub stomping everyone. So another big thing that I find very critical to a good season of Smite is the Conquest map. Of course, any of you who've watched any of my content will know that I'm a huge Conquest main, and the map for this season is a huge no-no in my opinion. A lot of my discomfort when looking back at this season comes from the questionable changes that were made to the map during this season. Of course, change is good, and I'm glad Hi-Rez / Titan aren't afraid of making big changes to the game to see how they work out, but man, they butchered my speed buff, and removed purple buff entirely, and messed up the whole back camp location thing. So the speed buff in this season was essentially split up into 3 mini speed buffs that were on 3 fire imps near Fire Giant. So this was a neutral location in the map, meaning it's straight down the middle, so both junglers had to fight for 1 speed buff basically. Yeah, needless to say, this was not fun mostly for junglers, and just contributed even further to early game snowballing, as early game focused junglers like Thanatos for example could just outfight the enemy jungler at the speed buffs, take them all, and then out-rotate for days and snowball the rest of their team. But anyway, let's quickly cover a few cool Misc facts about Season 3 that you might not have known. So the big Joust overhaul that changed it to the Chinese themed Joust that we have today in Season 6 happened in the launch patch of Season 3. I say in Season 6 because I've been hearing rumours of another Joust remake / remodel that could be coming down the line. But yeah, rest in peace old Joust, you will be missed. Speaking of resting in peace, the active system was abolished in this season as well and replaced with the relic system. If you want a more in-depth look at the old active system, then I'll link a video for you here that I've made on the topic. The Ratatoska rework also happened in this season, changing him from the insane 6 dashes in 1 cooldown that can crit and chain lightning to people into his new kit that he still holds today. Once again, if you want more info on this, I have a video discussing Rat's rework in depth on my channel. And finally, Freya's visual overhaul was also done in this season. Nothing major, but for any Freya mains out there that you have never seen her previous design, here you go. But that's about it for me on this one. Of course, let me know which season you want me to cover next and I'll get right on it. But with that said, I'll catch you guys in another video later on. Have a great day, and peace out you nerds.